Hey everybody, welcome back to Vine and Calvary with David and Lisa. We're glad you joined us today. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about shifting seasons.
That's right.
In the spiritual realm, we go from season to season, different seasons of the year, different seasons in the spiritual realm also, in our spiritual growth and our Christianity walk.
That's right.
I'd like to begin with reading Ecclesiastes 3:1, which reads, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven." So we know that things change for different purposes and different learning and teaching and growing.
That's right.
So things change. So our question is God shifting you into a new season? When God is preparing us for a shift in our season, we may begin to feel as if we are stuck in the mud of our current season.
That's right.
So let's say when you become a Christian, you go through a time to where, you're just kind of learning some things and you're working in certain things and certain gifts and things like that. And then all of a sudden, things are changing.
That's right.
It seems like you're not using these things as much. It seems like you just kind of run into a wall. Maybe you're feeling like you're not getting anywhere. And maybe that's God shifting you or trying to shift you into another season to where there's more growth, more learning, and maybe you might be using things new or learning things new.
That's right. A lot of times you'll feel like you're spinning your wheels when you're going through this. You'll feel like that you're really struggling, that you can find that things that used to come easy for you are now more difficult, and it seems harder and harder for you to come to where you used to get to easily. And the reason for that is God is trying to grow you and shift you into something new. And a lot of times we like to resist that change. And a good example is when you first became a Christian. When you first become a Christian, you're transitioning from your old self into Christianity. You're transitioning from your old life into Christian life. And a lot of times what we like to do and what we feel comfortable with is trying to take things that we used to like, things that we used to do, and things we were comfortable with before, and we try to bring that over into our Christian walk now. And you can't really transition that way. You have to leave the past in the past and move into the new. And when I'm saying that, is you can't bring your bad habits with you, okay?
Right.
And I'm not just saying that for the bad habits part, because that's generally how your first transition goes. But even when you're doing your Christian walk, the first transition that you go through, you're going to feel comfortable in where you were. And you're going to be uncomfortable to where you're going. It's no different than when you are in the example that you gave me earlier. When you're in school, you can't transition into the second grade until you got the first grade mastered. And you can't stay in the first grade the complete time.
Because you've learned everything you need to learn for the first grade. Now it's time to move on. Now it's time to learn something new.
Exactly. And we get comfortable in that ease and comfort of what we've already learned.
Right. We may feel like we're going nowhere fast, or maybe even going backwards.
Exactly.
And you're praying and you're like asking for insight or a little clarity on what's going on in your life. God, why is there not as much gladness there as there used to be? Maybe I'm not working like I need, like I have been.
Right.
And you're still doing everything right. Hey, God, I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything like I've been doing. I haven't changed anything. Why does it feel like I've just hit a wall? Why does it feel like I'm stuck in the mud and not getting anywhere? And it can be frustrating and very confusing, seem very chaotic. It can feel just like you're all alone.
Right.
It feels like you're not in the presence of God anymore, and that's not the way it is. You're still in God's presence. And a lot of that is because we don't want to let go of some of the things that we've done to go on to something new.
Exactly.
Because that's not God making us feel this way. That is just our natural being, wanting to just hold on and have things continue the way they were.
Exactly.
And we can't continue the way we are ever in our Christian walk. It's meant for us to grow. It means for us to go on and learn new things and to do new things. So that's not God making us feel bad.
No.
It's not God saying, oh, wait a minute, I'm just going to step out of your presence because you're not doing anything right. It's you wanting to hold on, like you said, hold on to the past and just kind of want to stick to what's comfortable and what you're used to. You just want what you've been doing to increase and get better and better and better, to renew all of those things. And a lot of that is because we're not letting go of the old and fully embracing the new things that God has for you. So in a shifting or repositioning, some people say repositioning, it's a shifting, a changing,
transition,
transitions.
Yeah.
It is possible that God can lead you to be removed from certain people or places, not because anything bad.
No.
I mean, sometimes He might lead you to leave an area. Right. He might lead you into other places to where you're around new people or different people.
Right.
Maybe that He removes people from your life. And that doesn't mean that anything's bad. That doesn't mean anything was going bad or anything was going wrong. It just simply means that maybe they're not significant for this next season that you're going into. It's kind of like with the gifts. You might have worked in a certain gift for X amount of time, and then all of a sudden you're not really working in that gift as much. And maybe it's because your seasons are changing and these gifts that you were working in are kind of set on the back burner. And even even if you're removed from people or people are removed from you or places that you're removed from or whatever, they never leave your life. You will always have this. And even later, 99% of the time you'll reconnect. Exactly. You may come back together or may come back to those gifts and work it with what you're learning, the new things you're learning in this next season.
Exactly. For example, if you're a pastor in a church and you've been in that church for quite some time and you've built the church up, you've done wonderful works in that church. I mean, you've really moved into the people and you've gotten the people to grow. You've actually made disciples of your sheep out of your followers there at the church. And you've turned that church to where you have some strong leaders emerging in that church to come forward, and you are teaching them and learning them on how to move forward and fill your footsteps. Now, what I'm going to say is sometimes you might have to leave from there because the growth that you have been sitting there to do has taken place. In other words, what God wanted you to accomplish has been accomplished, and now you need to move somewhere forward and start growing again and moving from there. Thus, the chain continues.
Exactly. Because even if everybody has the best interest at heart for you or whatever you're at, God knows what He wants you to do.
Exactly.
Okay. And He's not always going to remove you from a place. I'm not saying run out there and just leave this place or do this or do that. You always listen to the voice of God.
Exactly.
And you always get into scripture. And you always go into prayer. I mean, it's between you and God. What does He want us to do?
Exactly.
So we're not saying just take off running because you don't feel like something's doing right. That is by no means what we're talking about.
No.
But
you're always going to experience challenges, and you're always going to experience things like that. And that's not necessarily what we're talking about here, because you can have a challenging thing come up in your church that you need to continue on your way, because challenges also change us and grow us in what God wants us to do.
And exactly. So, everything could be perfect on where you're at or in the situation you're at. But the thing is, if God says, okay, you've went as far as you can go here, or you've went as far as you can go in this position for right now, I've got something more that I need for you to learn, and I'm going to have to possibly put you in a position or around other people that's going to show you and help get you to where I need you to be.
Exactly.
Or maybe I need you to start working in a new gift that I've given you.
Exactly.
And this that you're going to be away from for a little while is only for a while. Okay, because God can use you at any given time and in any way.
Exactly.
So we have to understand that none of these things are ever leaving our life. It's just sometimes it's not significant right now for your next season or whatever you need to learn at this next time. So God knows what He desires of you, and He will put those in your path that will play a role in your next season. Something you may learn that only they can teach you. God doesn't want anyone to be hindered in reaching our full potential. So
exactly
just
right.
listen to that. You are going to reach your full potential when you surrender to God and you obey His voice.
Exactly.
You're going to reach that full potential for that given time, because God's always on time. And we always are going to go through seasons in our life. So we think about this, and I'm going back to Abram, which most people know as Abraham.
Exactly.
So we think about that for just a minute. In the land of Ur, and I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's correct.
He was in his own country with friends, family, and still he remained Abram. But God come to him and says, I'm going to make you father of many nations. I'm going to increase your seed. I'm going to make you over. You're just going to have oodles and noodles. You're going to be over many, many nations. That door had already been opened for him. God already opened the door for him. But he had to step through that door.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So, when he left his land and all the things that he knew, excuse me, he went to a foreign land. He had no idea where he's going. And that's the kind of same way we are when we go to our next season. We don't know where we're going. 9 times out of 10, we don't know what we're going to do until we get there and it's like, oh, okay, I see, I understand.
Exactly.
I understand what's going on now. So, he left his homeland and he went to a foreign land. So, God made him what? Abraham. He changed his name, father of many nations. So, for Abram to reach his full potential, he would have to leave his current season, which involved leaving the way of life he'd known.
Right.
And embrace the new things God had for him. So, it's just like we said before. I'm not saying take off and just take off.
No.
You know, we don't make decisions on our own. That's why we always seek God in everything that we do. And we seek Him with all of our heart. And He will answer. He'll give us some insight. He'll give us some clarity on some things.
Exactly.
He's going to answer some questions for us. So, basically, when you're in a season, and for you to get to that next season, we can't take those old things with us. We'll take some of what we've learned and some of the good things that will benefit us in the next season.
Exactly.
But some of those things that in their current season can be put on the back burner. Saying, okay, I'm just going to let these back here simmer a little bit while you're learning something new, while you're doing a new work, while you're learning to produce more fruit.
That's right.
In this time and in this season. A shift in our spiritual season will be different. Okay, so it's going to be different. We just have to trust God and embrace what He has for us.
Exactly. I want to talk about that scripture she gave you, from where she's talking about Abraham moving on to the promised land that he wanted him to go into, and how I want to bring up the fact of comfort again. Now, where he was in his region that he had friends, family. He had things around him that was comfortable to him, that he knew. that he could trust in, that would help him and make things easier for him, okay? God didn't want him to stay in the easy place. He wanted him to grow and move forward into the promise that he had ready for him to receive. He just had to go and get it. Now, was going and getting it easy for him at first? No, it's not.
Right.
It's no different than the example of the Israelites leaving Egypt and going into the promised land. That time in the wilderness was difficult for them. And what did they always want to come back to when they complained to Moses about? Well, even in Egypt we had quail. Even in Egypt we had potted meat. Even
They
in
wanted
Egypt,
to go back to what they were familiar with. And that's us
Even-
in the spiritual sense also. We want to go back to what
we're familiar
we're
with.
familiar with.
Now there's two parts to that though. Now what they were talking about were going back to the things that they liked or were comfortable with in the place to where they were not benefiting. So in other words, you're going back to an uncomfortable place simply for the few small comforts that you did like.
Right.
Because you're not ready yet to walk into the promise, which is so much better. Because you're still holding on to what you already know. You have to sometimes let go to walk into the expectations that God has for you.
Right.
You can't
step
just
out in
rely
faith.
on that
Yes.
comfort, because it's always comfortable to stick to where you're at. What is the phrase? The devil, you know. So
With the familiar, because sometimes in some situations it's not really comfort. It's just familiarity.
exactly,
You're just familiar.
It's what you're
with these
used
things.
to.
Exactly. You know what to expect. You know what's going to happen. It's you don't have to worry about things being unfamiliar or whatever. So,
exactly right.
yeah.
But you have to walk out on that faith to move into the new place
Yes.
that God has
Yes, you
for
do.
you. It's no different than an early Christian. When you first become Christian, you start learning your Bible. You start learning how to do things. The first job that you transition into is evangelist, where you go and tell people about your being saved. You go and tell people about Christ.
Right.
You go and tell people about Christianity. What comes after that? Well, first you learn how to pray for yourself and how to pray, and then you learn to pray for others. Well, you transition again. Well, what are you doing now? Well, you can be teaching. Well, you become comfortable in teaching, then you can move on to speaking or preaching the word. You become good at that, well, then you can come forward and God can bless you with prophecy. Now you can prophesy.
Yeah, there's so many
But-
things. It's just different seasons and different
Exactly.
things that you're learning in each season. And it's all significant to your growth in Christianity. And it really all goes back to producing more fruit,
Exactly.
to being effective and being, prepared.
Exactly.
Yes. Genesis 13:14 through 16. It's just a couple of little verses about Abram. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot has separated from him. Now this was after they went their own ways. They separated the land and they's like, okay, I'm taking this side, you take that side. So lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. So look at all that he got, because he just had to just go and
That's right.
do.
And be faithful.
Move into that next season, because God had wonderful things for him when he moved into another season, when he was being shifted
Exactly.
from one area to another. John 15:2 says, every branch in me that beareth not fruit he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now, like we said before, it's never meant for us to work in one thing consistently throughout our Christian life. It is meant for us to bear fruit and to bear more fruit continually. His purpose, his purging that it mentions in the scripture, it's a trimming you up. It's a cutting you back. Yeah, I know most of you know about pruning rose bushes and fruit trees and shrubs or whatever to get them to even do better and better and better.
Where they'll bush out and bloom more.
Exactly. So it's trimming back when it comes to our spiritual walk and shifting in seasons. It's basically if we're bearing fruit, excuse me, and our whole purpose is to bear more fruit
Exactly.
and to continue to bear more fruit. We've got to have some stuff trimmed off of us. So it's trimming back some things we may need or may not need, or something on the forefront we had in one season but needs to be trimmed back for the next season so that we can bear even more fruit. We can move into an even more fruitful season for that door he has opened for us. So God is opening doors for you.
Exactly.
He's opening doors for you. And he's going to trim us up a little bit. If we're bearing fruit, he wants us to bear more fruit.
Exactly.
So he don't want just one family to be fed.
No.
He wants many people to be fed
Exactly.
with his fruit and to bear more fruit. It won't always be a comfortable thing.
No.
And we are all creatures of habit, and we like our comfort zones, just like you said, things that are familiar to us. We don't like to go into these unknown, unfamiliar places.
Right. Well, think of it this way. If you're comfortable with making your sermons, okay, and things come easily for you with your sermons, I'm going to give you an example here. Just like she said, when you trim back a rose bush or you trim back a fruit-bearing tree,
Yeah.
before it can bush out and produce more fruit, first, after that trimming, number one, it's not going to produce as much fruit at first. You know why? Because it's more difficult, because now it's growing. It has to move into a growing phase to where it grows out, bushes out more, and then the next season it's going to produce more fruit.
Right.
So that first trimming or that purging is going to be difficult for you. Things that you came to you easily are now going to come harder, okay? So a lot of times people feel like they're confused when they're about to grow and really expand. They feel confused because they feel like God's lessened in their life rather than increased. But he's waiting for you to finish increasing before he can bring forth that new fruit.
Right. So we've got to just step out on our faith and obedience to God. We can embrace this next season, whatever is going on, and you're not understanding some things, or you're confused, or you feel like you're spinning your wheels, or you're hitting a wall and things aren't moving as smooth as they used to be. You know, that may be God preparing you for a shift in your season.
That's right.
Because he has more for you to do. He's got more that he wants to do in your life and in the lives of those that are around you.
That's right.
So like the example I gave you earlier, these things and these people or these gifts or whatever it is that you are currently in your season now, and when things begin to shift, these things that may be removed or not used right now
Right.
are put on the back burner to just kind of simmer for a little bit.
That's right.
They're not removed from your life. They're still there. But they're not significant at this point in your growth during this purging time or during this pruning time to be able to grow a little bit more and to produce more fruit. They're not really significant in that process. But maybe later at the end of that season, they are. Maybe
Exactly.
even the next season after that, they are. Maybe not just right this minute.
Right.
Because the season that when you go from season to season, I think a lot of that is that you've went as far as you can go.
Exactly.
Maybe you've accomplished what you needed to accomplish at that
Exactly.
at that point in time, and now it's time to go to the next task, the next goal. And we just have to trust God and what He's doing. That He knows what He wants, and this is what He's, this is what He's doing.
Exactly.
He does this all the time with everyone in their Christian walk. And we have to allow that process to happen. And we do have to let go of some of those older things that maybe old way of thinking. Maybe we learned something that we might not have needed to learn at this time.
Exactly.
So it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out.
Exactly.
Because God is still in control. God is still on the throne. And we just have to be good sons of God and obey and trust and walk out in our faith.
That's right.
And trust that God knows what He's doing. Trying to get my notes together. I can't turn the pages. Matthew 9:16 and 17 reads, "No man putteth a piece of new cloth into an old garment. For that which is put in to fill it up taketh from the garment, and the rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. Seasons may last for years or months.
Exactly.
But just like the seasons of the earth, they will change if you allow the process. You can't move into a new season with an old way of thinking."
Exactly.
That's just like when we first started this video, he was talking about when you move from being a sinner to
Yes.
your confession of sins to Christian, you can't bring in all those other things that you wanted to
Exactly.
bring into it. And it's the same with the seasons, from one season to the next in a Christian walk and bearing fruit, brave fruit. Even though they're similar, and all of these seasons are similar, because it's all God is the head over all.
Exactly.
We have to understand that there's some things that we don't have to take into that next season, things that we're not going to be able to take into that next season. And that's what's so hard to change, to shift, is because it's unfamiliar.
Exactly.
So we can't go into a new season with the old way of thinking,
Exactly.
saying, well, this is the way it used to be. Well, you're in a different season. You're being shifted. And when you shift into a new season, there's new things that we need to learn. There's
Exactly.
new ways we're going to be used. And we have to have a different mindset. And it can't be the old mindset way.
Exactly.
It can't be the
You
old
have to be willing for that
mindset way.
change so that you can start to work in that.
Right. We just need to be usable. And we need to be surrendered to God and to where God is taking us.
Exactly.
Isaiah 43:18 and 19. "Remember ye not the former things, neither to consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." Where we think that we can't be used,
Exactly.
or God can't
there's
carry
no
us
way.
there,
Yeah.
Hey, He can make a way, and He is making a way.
Exactly.
He loves each and every one of us, and He wants us to prosper. He wants us to grow. He wants us to bear more and more fruit.
Exactly.
God is preparing you for greater fruitfulness and effectiveness.
Exactly.
Philippians 2:13 reads, "For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of His good pleasure." So we need to just surrender to God and what He wants for us in our lives, in our Christian walk, for whatever season it is.
That's right.
And just be open to His leading and His growing us.
Exactly.
And stop trying to kind of go backwards, but take that step out in faith,
That's
that
right.
step forward to where He wants to take you.
That's right. We should always be moving forward and not back. Don't hold on to past regrets or past things that may have happened in your life, such as in situations to where you may have lost people at your church or you had arguments at your church. Always be willing to move forward because there's something waiting for you if you're diligent and faithful in what God has. There might be a new position coming forward that you will come into and move forward with. So always remember, with all things, even if you're past Christian walk in your ministry had to do with teaching, or it could have been evangelism, or it could have been any of those things, and He's moving you into something else. Not that you're not going to use that. We've said that many times. But you can't stay where you're at. You're constantly in a growth process that we are always ready to move forward and grow. Don't try to hang on to what you want to do. You need to be looking forward to what God has for you on the next level.
Right. Exactly. And it's not always going to be cake and candy. It's not always going to be just an easy process. Yeah, we have to learn how to let go of some things, and we have to learn how to embrace the new things that God has for us. So we thank you for watching today, and we're praying for each and every one of you. Until next time, we love you. Bye-bye.
Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe.